Hello, everyone. My name is Taylor Ratanasan, and if you can believe it, we are actually finishing the second of 3 rounds reading through the Bible from Genesis to Revelation. Now, if you remember, throughout 2021, we'll be journeying through the Bible from Genesis to Revelations 3 different times, one in the fall, one in the spring, one in the summer, highlighting some of these themes: creation, fall, the people of God, Jesus, and the church. And so each time through, we're going to cover different books and different chapters. And with all 3 together, we will read the entire Bible in 1 year. And so today, we are on the last of our Revelation readings, which is chapters 13 through 16. And as always, there is a lot going on. And so I'm actually going to focus on Revelation 14:12. So let's read this from the NIV. This calls for patient endurance on the part of the saints who obey God's commandments and remain faithful to Jesus. And so from these texts, we see, and if you read the previous chapters, those who refuse to worship the beast, they will be under intense persecution. Now, prior verses indicate that those who reject his mark would be ostracized at best and martyred at worst. And so this verse, it encourages the believers to patiently withstand the persecution. They are saints. That is, they are believers who are separated unto God. They obey God, not the beast, and their faith is in Jesus. And so I was reading through some of the different versions, and this is the Message version, and I really like it. Again, it's chapter 14, verse 12. Meanwhile, the saints stand passionately, keeping God's commandments, staying faithful to Jesus. And so I think it's safe to say that this text, it's a universal call to believers to hold fast to faith with obedience and to trust, especially in the face of overwhelming opposition and there's eternal stakes. This verse is a call to action, and I think it says 3 calls to action. 1, to stand passionately patient. 2, to keep God's commandments, so it's obedience. And 3, remaining faithful, and so trusting God. And although we are reading about the believers who will have to endure much hardship during the end times, this is something that we don't want to miss for us right now. Don't you think that these 3 virtues are actually really hard to live out right now? Patience. How many can say that they have mastered patience? I know that I am a work in progress. I can barely stand it. I can barely have the patience as I wait on my boys to enter and exit the car. I mean, it's like, why do they move at a snail's pace all of a sudden? My patience is very low when it comes to that. Obedience. Do we obey the Lord, and not just obey eventually, but to obey immediately? I tend to hear God speak, and then I sit on it for a long time. This is not immediate obedience. In fact, I'm reminded about how God put it on our hearts to invite our next door neighbors over, and I just sat on it and was waiting for the perfect time, and before you know it, COVID hits. And so it's been even a year longer than I was supposed to wait on inviting our neighbors over. Delayed obedience really stinks. I didn't push for that dinner date, and now it's going to be a year less growing closer with those neighbors. And so immediate obedience, it totally matters. Trust. Is your confidence 100% in the Lord about all things in your life? Do you believe that his ways are higher than your ways? Do you believe that his thoughts are higher than your thoughts? I make a lot of decisions based off my own ways and my own thoughts. We don't know, and we won't know what John is seeing in his vision. We don't know when it's going to happen. But let's not wait for that time to be steadfast in our patience, our obedience, and our trust. We know that these things are pleasing to God as we see it all over in Scripture. Here are some reminders. Ephesians 3:17 says to be rooted, to be grounded. Ephesians 6:13 says having done all to stand firm. Galatians 6:9 says we will reap if we do not give up. Romans 5:3 says suffering produces endurance. Matthew 24:42 says stay awake. Ephesians 6:18 says keep alert with all perseverance. And Mark 13:13 says the one who endures to the end will be saved. These are important things to the Lord. And so we know that we will never be perfect, but this is a call to work and to train ourselves in what God says believers have to endure. And so today, I encourage you to meditate and to become deeply rooted in these three things. Passionately being patient, immediate obedience, and remaining faithful and trusting God in all things. And so I hope you guys have a good rest of the day. Meditate on these three things, and we can't wait to start back in Genesis tomorrow.